Jerry Moore of New Covenant Fellowship Church. Is he here? Councilwoman Absher, would you do the invocation?
Yes. Our great God, we come to you and pause to acknowledge that you are God and that every good and perfect gift comes from you, and we are blessed and we thank you for that. And we're thankful we can come together to do business for our city. Pray that you'll be with each one that is here. You know the things that will be discussed that will be for the betterment of our citizens and this community. And we pray that your wisdom and your guidance will prevail in each and every one of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Roll call.
Councilman DeGaris.
Here.
Councilwoman Abshir.
Here.
Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Tinsley.
Here.
Councilman Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Russian.
Here.
Mayor Pearson.
Here.
7 present.
Disclosure of interest. Any member of the City Council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting. Seeing none. Citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the City Council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are approved by a single action of the City Council. If any council member would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and considered separately, he or she may so request.
Madam Mayor, we've been presented with the minutes and the clerk's report. I'd make a motion we approve as presented.
A second.
Motion and a second to approve the clerk's report and the minutes as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to the workshop items. Item A, the City Council will discuss a request from the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve a conditional use permit to sell liquor by the drink at a proposed restaurant in a C3 Central Area Commercial Zone District. The property is located at 506 Vine Street. The applicant is C. Brian White, 1559 County Road 468. Mr. Avery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you stated, Christopher Brian White is the applicant. He and his partner are wanting to put this business in. It's just west of 5th Street on Vine on the south side. A conditional use permit to sell liquor by the drink is required in a C3 Central Area Commercial District, which this is zoned that. They intend to have a restaurant, and they would like to allow for sale of alcohol by the drink to bring a larger variety of food and drink to the downtown area while positively impacting the climate and culture of historic downtown. Existing zoning is C3 Central Commercial. At this previous to them acquiring this property, it was a vacant commercial property. Surrounding land use to the north, south, and west is C3 Central Area Commercial. To the east would actually be CX3 Mixed Use Commercial. The building is already built. They do expect to increase the size of their deck in the rear if possible for additional seating. Utilities are available. Police and fire protection is available, with fire station number 1 being the first responder. This property is located at the edge of the downtown commercial district, and restoration and reuse of this building as an upscale restaurant named the Frontier House fits well into the plan for downtown revitalization. Limited parking is available on-street, and off-street parking is available at the downtown parking lot, which is northeast of this property. No properties in the central area commercial district are required to have on-site parking, So this is in keeping with the other businesses in the downtown area. The proposed business hours would be Tuesday through Saturday from 11 to 12. That's a.m. And they hope to employ 5 to 8 people. Of course, they would have to meet all the requirements for the planning department prior to obtaining the right to do business as a restaurant, and then the conditional use for the liquor by the drink before they could have that possibility. Any questions?
I've had citizens voice concern about this location as a placement of a dumpster and a placement of a...
I met, let me see. I met the end of the week before, not last week, but the end of the week before with one of the gentlemen involved with this process, who is in the audience tonight, by the way. And we resolved the issue of trash removal on a timely basis, which was part of the questions, because it doesn't allow for a large dumpster, but if you have a large one, you're not servicing it as often either. So that was something that we resolved. Also, there was concerns about there are houses behind this, to the rear of this, even though it's zoned commercial, and they wanted some protection of their privacy, the adjoining property owners. And I met with and talked to the gentleman about that, and they agreed that they would do it to the satisfaction of the city and any recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission and the council prior to, and there is a fence there that's on the other property line, but there needs to be some shield or something to obscure visibility and lighting and all that from the business to the residential space.
We had a lengthy discussion on all that.
Yes, we did. We had a very good discussion about that, and I believe we did answer most everyone's questions at that time, and then at the later conversation I had with the gentleman. And there is a recommendation for a stipulation on this. Mr. Russian?
Yes, sir.
I know you always appreciate it when I
I
add one
do,
of those.
I do, yes, sir.
The conditional use would go with the business owner. If the business sells, the new owner would have to apply for a conditional use permit to continue the use of alcohol sales. They could continue the restaurant, but without a conditional use, they would not be able to continue the alcohol sales with the new owner. Any other questions? And if there is questions that you have that I'm not able to answer, one of the partners is here tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Avery.
you.
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I make a motion to move this to the voting session, B15 of 2015.
Second.
Motion and a second to move item A to the voting session on January 5th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, the City Council will discuss the assessment of additional municipal court costs to provide operating expenses for the Haven House.
Hi, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Mary Ann Allen. I'm the director at Haven House. We have been the recipients of $2 per city court case for many, many years, according to state statute. Just this past August, signed into law was a new statute that allows for municipalities to assess an additional $2, so up to $4 for each ordinance violation in municipal court. Haven House, and according to the statute, the funds must go exclusively to shelters for victims of domestic violence. They can't be used for any other sort of homeless program or service to any other population out there. For the last 2 to 3, 4 years, we've received about $5,700 to $5,800 off of those court fees. So that would be a real help to us to see that moved up to around $11,000. Our annual budget at Haven House, by the way, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary in serving victims of domestic violence in our community. We are one of the oldest rural programs in Missouri and one of the most well-respected. We do a good job there. I think if you ask the police chief, he could tell you that we are always working with them hand in hand to make sure victims of domestic violence have a place to go. And when they have other situations that aren't exactly what we do everything we can to make sure that families in crisis get the assistance that they need. Last year, we sheltered 220 women and children for almost 6,000 bed nights. So people are staying an average of about a month. Of the 220, 142, or 65% of those had Poplar Bluff addresses. So of a budget of about $450,000, approximately $380,000 is used to staff the shelter, pay utilities, buy food, all the things that we need to do to give them a safe place to live at no cost to anyone who comes through our doors. So it's the biggest part of our budget, but where we probably serve the fewest people, but the ones who are most in crisis. We would appreciate very much your consideration of increasing those court fees. They certainly will not come out of the city budget. They come from fees that are assessed for people who are found guilty of ordinance violations in the city court. Does anyone have a question?
I don't have any questions, but I think I thank you very much for what you all do, and I know that many people in the community are very thankful to have the Haven House here, and I have no problem supporting what you're trying to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion, we'll move that to a voting session.
Second.
Motion is second to move item B to the voting session, which will be held on January 5th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, the City Council will discuss the renewal of casualty and property insurance for the City of Poplar Bluff.
Good evening. I was volunteered to do this, so I'm going to do it. In your packet this evening, I think you'll find a letter that our firm at Morris Harwell Giles had asked to put in the packet to explain the situation with what's going on with your property and casualty renewal. I think we rewarded the broker of record on that. Pam, am I correct? It was on the 17th of November?
Mm-hmm.
And then at that time, we were to meet with the city manager and discuss what was expected of us and look at the contract. We met with him, I believe it was on the 25th of November. I believe it was on Tuesday, is that correct? And at that time, we were hired as the broker. The only thing that we really were doing at the time was just do our due diligence to give you a renewal. Because up until that point, we didn't know who the broker of record was going to be. So I explained to the city manager that most carriers that we work with on public entities of this size want 60 to 90 days out to give us a competitive bid. We talked about it at length, and so he asked that we go back to the carriers that we deal with and see if they would be willing to, number one, our current carrier, give us an extension of renewal for 60 days. I did contact the underwriter and the carrier, and they refused to do so. And really, when you think about it, what we're doing is we're telling them that, well, we're not here in time to get you some bids for a January 1 renewal, so we want you to stay here, do us for 60 days, and if we find something better, we're going to move it. So naturally, they weren't really in favor of that. So this evening, what we brought to you is the actual renewal from the current carrier, and we also asked for an option with the renewal, which explains it. I'll pass these out, and you can look at them. And we did also contact our current carriers, and we have emails that they responded to that they were not interested because of lack of time. January 1 is a big renewal season for public entity business, and so they're quite busy at this time also. A few others responded as they weren't in favor of the exposure. The letter that was in your packet explains that, and it's basically the same thing every year that we hear from the same carriers, but I do have those if you're interested. So to get what we're really looking at here, there's 3 columns. Now, you have 2 pages. One is for the city, the second page is for the utilities department. The first page on the city of Poplar Bluff, you'll see what the expiring premium was for 2014. Pam, did you get one?
No.
Sorry.
That's okay, I was gonna get one from one of these guys.
That's okay.
Thank you.
So if you look at the first column, you'll see that the expiring premium and what it was for 2014. A little bit different in 2015 because of the way that the city bid for broker fees. The premiums that you're seeing on the renewal premium are net commission. So what the insurance carrier did was the commission they pay us, they deducted that amount. So the premiums you're looking at for the renewal premium for 2015 is the net premium that is actually due to the carrier. Now, that 75,000 is not on here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you look at the renewal premium for 2015, you can see that for the city, the net premium is down that amount of money. We gave you an option. And the areas that we gave you an option were with, we raised the deductible on the property from $5,000 to $10,000. We raised the deductibles on the auto, on the physical damage side, from $1,000 to $2,500. And then we also increased the deductible on the inland marine equipment from $1,000 to $5,000. So by changing those deductibles, you can see the amount of premium saved is roughly $6,000 for the city of Poplar Bluff on their side. Not a substantial amount of savings. And also, when you look at that, if the $6,000 in premium that you're saving with the number of claims that we've had in the past 5 years on the physical damage part of autos and property, not as much property, but autos is the biggest, really one of the largest exposures the city has. Probably not going to, it probably costs you in the long run. But if we continue to do what we've done over the last 5 years on auto claims. If you flip over to the utility side, on the utility side, you'll see expiring premium of $325,418. The 2015 renewal is $309,239. Now that's net. That's less the commission that they normally pay us. Where we took a big hit was on the boiler machinery equipment side for the peak power plant. We've had 2 claims on the power plant, and I would say in the last 6 or 7 years. And when you have a boiler machinery claim, or we call it equipment breakdown now, they're usually pretty good size because it's an internal breakdown of an engine. In this case, we've had 2 of those. If my memory serves me correct, the first one was in excess of $200,000, and the one we had in 2012 that we're still working on is, I think to date we've paid almost $800,000 on that claim, with another $200,000 or $300,000 yet to settle. The reason it's taken so long on this particular claim is because of the complexity of the engine that we're dealing with, and Mr. Bach can talk to you about that. I have a hard time understanding what he's talking about when it comes to that stuff, but he does know what he's talking about. I can assure you that. But our biggest problem was one of the main parts of this older engine is not available. They don't make that part anymore. So we're having, I think, in my discussion with Bill, is to go back and have that part manufactured. And so it's really, that's the main reason why it's down. So really what you're talking about here is the biggest part of what happened was, in premium-wise, was the boiler machinery. If you look on the third column, we once again changed deductibles. Now, we left off the deductible part on the property, but we we quoted it at 10,000 also. So if you go down the line, you can see, without going through each one of them, the difference in premium on the utility side was a little bit more, but still, again, they're having some issues that could cost you. Now, if you don't ever have a claim, it's great, but we don't have a magic wand, so we really don't know what's going to happen with that. So you can see there what the savings would be, which was what, probably $15,000, $16,000, somewhere in that area, which is substantial, but with the exposures you have on the auto and the utility side, might not be something you want to entertain, but then again, that's why we gave the option. So with that being said, the only thing that is not on these numbers is our broker fee of $75,000 that we've negotiated with the city on. Any questions?
Why is the employee's benefit liability higher on the renewal option? One's 191, one's 306.
The city of Poplar Bluff on that side has more employees than the utilities department, based on number of employees.
Well, this is on the utility department.
City of Poplar Bluff was,
See, it says 191 on
He's talking about straight across the line.
right straight across the line. See, it says 191 and 306.
employee. The employee benefits side for the city of Poplar Bluff is 306, correct?
Right, but on the savers over here.
It's talking about page 2
Utilities.
and the utilities.
On 215, I'm sorry.
$191 to
$191 to
$306.
$306.
Oh, I see that, I see it. That should be 191.
Okay.
It should have
Because I was
changed.
gonna say, why is
It
it-
should not
why-
change, that's a good point, it should
Why
not
is
have
it
changed.
raised?
Yeah, it should not have changed, it should be 191.
Thank you.
So, I just did some calculations here. If we go with the one with the higher deductibles, we'll save about $60,000 compared to last year. But if we go to, compared to last year,
14.
and then if we go to the lower deductible, we'll save about about $32,000 in premiums.
Right, but the reason that there's
Because
such a big
because it's
spread
off. Mhm.
is because the commission is taken out of the others.
Right.
It really wouldn't be that big a spread if our commission was added in.
Mayor, it's more or less a pay me now or pay me later. Really.
We'll insure it for you, or you can do it yourself,
That's
basically is what the insurance industry is saying.
We do have several claims a year.
So we could go with either the higher deductible or the lower deductible.
The lower deductible.
Just to give you an idea, we've done a little bit of research on the number of claims the city's had, and I think Charles has that.
Charles Moffett, MHJ Insurance. The claims since 2011, January 1, for the city and the municipal utilities has been 98 claims. 28 of them were vehicle. 12 of them were vehicle liability, where just somebody did something that was only liability to the other party. Only 7 property claims. And actually, in the last 2 years, only 2. So that's trending really well. 45 general liability claims, of which more than half of those were closed without any payment. Equipment breakdown 2, professional liability 4, for a total of 98. So deductibles on vehicles from $1,000 to $2,500, with averaging about 6 or 7 a year, you're probably not going to save any money there. Property might be one that you would, looking at all those. Now those, also we look at 3-year loss ratio or the 4-year.
We have a 4-year loss ratio that has trended down from, say, municipal utilities. Say 3 years ago was when the equipment breakdown claim occurred. They had loss ratios of over 300%, which to municipal utilities this year trending in below 10% loss ratio. So all loss ratios seem to be going down.
Which is good.
Safety programs seem to be working. 1 year, the equipment breakdown, that has skewed the numbers for overall.
What's the rating on Savers?
Savers is B++ rated by AM Best, which is a good rating.
And how long is this renewal cycle run?
It runs from January 1 of 15 to January 1 of 16.
So then you would have an opportunity with a window opening up as we approach 16
Yes.
that you could then solicit.
Next year, there should be an opportunity to get quotes from any and everybody because the time constraints will not be an
Okay.
issue.
And we have approached other carriers to quote, as Steve mentioned. And we have letters here from seven that have declined to quote for various reasons. There are certain exposures within that the city has, the rail spur, owning the rail spur, peak power plant. Those are not typical core municipality exposures. And the airport as well. So those are exposures that aren't typical to most municipalities of this size. That makes it a lot harder to find coverage, especially with one carrier. Now, you could probably look at breaking apart at some point and shopping all lines of business. We have not done that in the past few years, but it is an option we can look at in the future. Typically, one provider writing it all will give a better rate than going out and getting the hard-to-place carriers written because premiums get very high. But that being said, that doesn't mean that's not an option, and we'll have that, I'm certain, next year.
Well, we had a carrier this week that contacted us and said, we would like to quote your business. We want you to take the peak power plant completely off the grid. We don't want anything to do with that. It'd really be tough to go out here and write a peak power plant, building, equipment breakdown, all that, and even the liability exposure, and get a real competitive bid. It just will be. And this is a $26 million piece of property we're talking about. It's a pretty good chunk of change.
$25,200,000.
So we raised it a little bit.
Now, and I don't know in this process what's been done. What's the protocol that you have on a yearly basis or whatever to be sure they're like on vehicles? Make sure we're insuring vehicles that are in service, not in service. You know what I mean?
September 1 of each year for the last 10 years that I've worked on this account,
Mm-hmm.
I go to City Hall, I go to Utilities Department, I give them a current list of all the vehicles, of all the properties, and all the in the marine equipment, and we sit down and painstakingly go through it every year.
Okay.
It's a necessary evil. We have to do it. We update all the drivers. We run MVRs on all the drivers to make sure they're clean. And then, of course, the company will do inspections on the property to make sure that we're in line on the insurable value of the property.
Okay.
But we do this every year and a half for the last 10 years.
Great.
And we've also shopped it with different carriers for the last 10 years. And Poplar Bluff's just a, it's not a large city and it's not a small community. It's right in the middle, which makes it tough because of the type of exposures that we have.
We had changed carriers too.
Yeah.
During that time. Yeah, during that time, we've also placed it with other carriers. It hadn't been with Savers all this
Okay.
time.
No, we've been to Moperm 1 year. We moved it back to Missouri Rural Services or Savers. We went to Trident out of Texas, and in midterm, they decided they wanted to cancel because of the peak power plant.
Which they knew about.
And so, I mean, this is what you have, but they knew it was there. They just decided, the reinsurance carrier said, we don't want this exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a problem they have there.
I was just looking at the deductibles. If we went with the one with the higher deductible, I was adding it up, it's almost like we would be paying less in the long run if we use the max of our deductible, because if you subtract the two, it's about $16,000 difference, and the difference between the two would be about, I'm sorry, I lost my place on here. I've got figures all over my paper, but what would you recommend? Am I correct in saying that if we went with the one with the higher deductible, we would actually have a better chance of saving some money?
You have a better chance, but actuarial, thinking it from the.
Does that make sense,
underwriter
what I'm trying to
book,
say?
It's all about expected losses, and your expected losses are based on your past history. So when they do the calculations, you're typically not going to see much difference in savings. That's how the insurance industry works. You're taking more of the risk by taking a higher deductible with the same expected losses. So ultimately,
If you had no losses, you'd save $16,000.
The way
But
I
you
see
had
Right,
one-
but between the prices between the two, the premiums, when you start adding that up, it actually ends up being a better deal to go with the higher
Well,
deductible,
it is a better deal
just in
up front.
case. Yeah.
Unless you
okay.
have
Still have
losses.
Unless you have
360,
losses.
you have
Ah.
365 days to go through without losses. So if you have
Yeah,
one property loss, your deductible is $10,000
instead of 5.
instead of 5. If you have one
And so it
building,
goes per
it's
incident. I
per
see.
There you go.
loss, it's per
Okay.
occurrence. We call it per occurrence.
I see
How many
the,
That makes sense.
see the automobiles eating it up, eating the savings up.
Let's say we have a hailstorm.
Yeah.
Pardon?
How many vehicles did you say we had?
How many do you have?
the city has about 105, municipal utilities 45, 50.
No, I got more than that. Utilities has 87 vehicles of last count.
No, I mean, how many?
28
How many
losses.
claims?
Oh,
in
losses.
4 years
Oh, okay, losses.
on,
Okay.
That's
on
over the last
vehicles.
4 years.
And 12 for vehicle liability only, but physical damage, where you have to pay your $1,000 deductible, 28 of those losses in 4 years.
So that's $28,000.
Pardon?
$1,000 deductible is $28,000 for 4 years.
Exactly.
And the other one would be twice that much.
So it'll be,
More than twice.
it'd be more than twice.
Yeah.
If the trend's still.
Thank you for
continue.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
The property is trending favorable though. 2 losses in the last, if you go have no losses, you save a little money by going on your property. But if you have a $10,000 loss, you have no claim. Because it's deductible, you know. As broad as it is long, really.
Go ahead.
If you're curious as to some of the other cities that are with Savers, Warrensburg, Louisiana, which is in the northeast part, Boonville, which is smaller than we are.
In Columbia area.
Those are some cities,
But they've got a bunch
municipalities.
of them.
That's several. Those are just ones that come up on 1/1, like the city of.
Who does Sykeston use? You all know?
I could not tell you.
Last time I checked, it was Travelers. And we have a letter from Travelers that declined.
They've declined us every year that we've asked them.
Okay.
Hartford, Travelers, they both declined.
Okay.
See, Travelers, with Sykes, you know, there's a lot.
Mhm.
Our power generation is separate from the
Yeah.
city.
Okay.
So in closing, we have a December 31 renewal. We actually don't see anyone stepping up to the plate before that date, other than the incumbent.
We got one more.
But there is a possibility. There are 2 carriers that have expressed interest in at least seeing full applications and going through and trying to underwrite it. It's possible that there would be another quote. I wouldn't anticipate they're going to beat them in price.
Any other questions?
If questions come up, we're pretty easy to find.
Do we need to vote on this tonight? If you need
I
it
think
by
we just-
December
I think we're trying
31st?
to just explain why we only had maybe one real option. when we were
Okay,
hoping to have
so
more.
you'll be okay if we vote on January 5th?
January when? No.
No, let's have
No, no, no.
29.
December 29th.
We,
Renewal date's January 1.
Okay, because my paper
Midnight.
says, okay. It's just an error on my paper.
oh,
December 29th.
yeah, December 12th, yeah, that would be what it was. But we need to make a decision on this because, and just to be honest, we haven't really done our due diligence on updates and everything because we didn't know what our position was until middle of November. Now, we keep current, run, but we still have a lot of work to do on this to make sure that we're in check with a lot of areas. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Which we can do.
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we move this forward to the 12/29 and
Thank you,
If
Judge.
they have any more proposals, they can bring them at that
Thank you.
time.
I second.
Motion and a second to move item C to voting session on December 29th. And if they have any further proposals, they can bring it up at that time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, the City Council will review a request from Smith & Company to select a contractor and award a contract for the Industrial Park Drainage Improvements Project. Hello.
Justin Roberts, Smith & Company Engineering. What you have in your packet is a letter basically detailing where we have opened bids for this project, the drainage improvements project in the industrial park. It runs from the property between Starving USA and Gates Rubber along Harlow Dunn Road and Dutson Road south to Cravens Road Ditch. Bids have been reviewed by us as well as USEDA. As you see in the packet there, they have been approved by the USEDA, and we have recommended that we award the project to Hessling. If there are any questions about the project or layout.
Anyone have any questions for him?
No, we're good.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to move this to the voting session tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to move item D to the voting session to be held tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, the City Council will discuss an ordinance approving an annual budget appropriating the city's local share payments in accordance with ordinance number 6837 and the cooperation agreement between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Committee, the City of Poplar Bluff, and Highway 67 Corporation Cooperative Agreement. Mr. Massingham.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this is something we do every year. This is the Highway 67 half-cent sales tax we collect every month. And at the first quarter of the following year, we send whatever the balance is in that fund in December to MoDOT to pay our portion of the 4 lane of 67 from Poplar Bluff to Fredericktown.
Mr. Massingham, was it up this year or up?
Oh, sales tax up? Yes, it's been up some. Last year we paid, well, in February of this year we paid $2,153,000. Last year we paid $2,193,000. The year before that it was $2,104,000. So it kind of fluctuated the last few years. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Mayor, I make a motion to move this to voting session tonight.
Second.
Motion and a second to move item E to the voting session to be held tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, the City Council will discuss an equipment lease purchase agreement for the purchase of pumper trucks for the fire department. Chief Stucker.
Madam Mayor, member of the council, you received the quotations for the 2 bids we got in. One was $916,000 and the other was $960,000. I believe Mr. Kaplan's working on the funding for that. I have a representative from the Johns Mid-America here if you have any questions on the truck.
They provide training for us for the
Yes.
working on, or, you know, the newness of them.
One of the, there'll be 3 individuals that'll go to the plant. One of them will be from the motor pool. They'll work with the people at the plant to go from the ground up on how they put them together.
What's the timeline on it?
360 days.
And that started from when?
When the contract signed. Is that correct?
How much different is this from what we originally discussed with getting new trucks? Some of the council members were concerned that this might be a little bit different than what we had originally brought to you to do.
The 2 trucks that was in production
Mhm.
The 2 trucks that was in production are just like demo trucks coming down through there. When we got to looking at the specifications, the depth of the compartments were like 12 inches deep.
Mhm.
A lot of our equipment, we'd have a hard time getting them to fit in the truck, storage-wise. The pump's also a proprietary pump that that one manufacturer designs and makes. We've seen that pump now, it's all cast together. If we have any problems with that, we've got to go back to that manufacturer. And if there's anything that's an internal on that there, that truck may have to be sent back to a service center to be worked on. The pumps that would be on these pumps right here is the same pumps we have now. We'll send personnel to Water's Pump School to get training on how to operate them and work on them. And we can get parts from several different vendors.
Do you have a question, Councilman DeGaris?
Chief Stucker, I made this suggestion of Freightliner, fire trucks and all, did those not meet the specifications?
If we get Freightliners, the length and wheelbase of the trucks and maneuverability of them in our south end and east side will be very difficult. We've got a truck down in the south end now, it's international. A lot of times when the guys make the turns down there, they'll drop the duals off in the ditch. We designed this truck right here with a shorter wheelbase for maneuverability and everything like that.
Well, I know that, everybody up at, on this, around this table and probably citywide, want to get you the best thing we can get you for the least amount of money. We got to watch some of that, and if they didn't meet the specifications, they just didn't meet them.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Does anyone want to make a motion to move this to the voting session tonight?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion is second to move item F to the voting session to be held tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, the City Council will discuss the selection of a consultant for a feasibility study of City Hall for the City of Poplar Bluff. Mr. Massingham.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, several weeks ago we set up a committee of 7 people to review the feasibility study and the proposals. We had 2 people from City Hall, 2 people from the police department, 1 from municipal court, and 2 people from utilities. We had 3 firms submitted proposals. There was Goldberg Group Architects out of St. Joseph, Missouri. They partnered with Toth and Associates Consulting Engineers. We had GHN Architects out of Springfield, Missouri, who partnered with Smith & Company Engineers from Poplar Bluff. And we had Dilly Traxel Architects of Poplar Bluff, who partnered with Toth and Associates, and also Horner Schifrin Engineering, who has an office here in Poplar Bluff. We interviewed all 3 firms. They all did excellent presentations. The majority of the committee felt like GHN of Springfield explained more in their presentation on how they would look at all possibilities, including renovating this building. They actually went in depth about this current building we're in. They were very excited about looking at that, but they were also talking about new buildings. Once the structural engineers get in here, they may completely dismiss that, but when it came down to the last meeting when the committee met, they were kind of split on their decision. We had 3 people for Dilly and Traxel, we had 3 people for GHN, and 1 person for Goldberg Architect. The person that had chose Goldberg ended up changing and going with GHN. The other 3 that had chosen Dilly and Traxel, they all agreed that all 3 firms were excellent firms. They all did excellent presentations, and any of them could do this project. But in the end, the majority of the committee recommended GHN out of Springfield and Smith & Company as the engineer. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those.
What's the price difference between the Dilly and Traxel one and the GHN?
We didn't look at price. We just looked at their qualifications.
Okay. Just questioning.
So actually, I
What's
can't
the
answer that
difference
because
in
I
the
don't.
qualifications? Is there a score?
Well, I mean, GHN came out on top, but like I said, all 3 firms were excellent. All 3 of them can do the project. Myself, I was kind of torn between GHN and Dilly and Traxel. They're both good firms, and so's Goldberg. So, Don't know if that helped you any or not, but.
I've been through this building. I don't know if there's any chance of saving this building. I hate to say that because it sounds like I'm giving up on it, but on a tour of the roof structure, Mr. Kaplan, I don't know if you've been here now. What do you think?
I mean, I don't mean to be, I guess, down on this building, but if the building can be saved, I mean, it definitely will take a miracle, in my opinion. It's just in very, very poor condition. Any building can be rehabilitated. I don't want anyone to believe it can't. It can. I think we owe it to the public at large to look at every available option, including the rehabilitation of this building. But if you ask me my opinion, I think it's going to cost significantly more money to rehabilitate this building than it would to build brand new. It's just, this building was not designed to be a city hall. It was not designed to be a police station. It wasn't designed to be a municipal court. The city has tried to retrofit governmental services into existing buildings for a while, and it just, it works to an extent, bless you, but it just gets to a point where you got diminishing returns, and that's where we're at today. So if you ask me in my opinion, again, this is my unprofessional opinion because I am not an architect or an engineer, the building is in very poor condition, and I would believe that it would cost more to rehabilitate than it would to build new.
And this is for the feasibility study. This isn't for the design and construction of a new facility or to renovate. You know, at some point, once this study's done, then we'll decide whether to build or renovate, and then I'm sure we would choose an architect to do that project then. So,
Mark, is there any way we can get a price before we vote on this?
it's not on the voting session tonight,
No,
is it?
I know it, but before.
Yeah, we got those, I guess.
The reason
Yeah.
why
Well,
is because of 7%.
Mr. Johnson.
No, you can.
It's an RFQ. It's a
Okay.
request for qualifications. It cannot be, price cannot be an option as to a criteria they're using to vote. You have to be a best qualified firm, no matter what the price is. And so that's why we advertised it that way. So we're getting the best qualification. Again, this is a feasibility study. This isn't they'll provide a conceptual design, but this isn't the actual schematic design of a new. So, but yeah.
They're still going to charge us.
They will, but again, again, not just Missouri, but Texas is the same on this. When you advertise a request for qualifications, you cannot use price as a determining factor.
I didn't know that.
Are we wasting money getting a feasibility study on this building? I mean,
I don't believe so, because I think, again, you have a public at large that's not informed as to what your options are. I think you just owe it, because the feasibility study is going to do a lot of things, not just can we rehabilitate or not. If you build new, then you got site selection, and we have to work very close with our community for that site selection. Do we move the police station out of downtown? Which that's my recommendation. But again, I think we need to talk to our public about that as well. Where do we move the court? Where does City Hall need to be? Those things are all part of this analysis before moving forward, because we did something like this very similar in Muskegon County when we're talking about building the new jail and building the juvenile transition center, and it was a very fruitful venture because we learned a lot. Because, for example, just to give you a quick example, our juvenile transition center, we were looking to reuse a old school, and most of the elementary schools in Muskegon are in subdivisions. They did not, I repeat, did not want a juvenile transition center in their subdivisions. We would have, again, if we would have just blown forward and let's say selected one of those buildings, we would have been doing something, I think, in great error, because our public did not, and Muskegon did not want that. And so they helped guide us as to what was acceptable. And in this case was go ahead and build on existing government land. Don't have to worry about the zoning issues. Go from there, and that's exactly what we did, and it was successful. So to answer your question, it's long-winded, but yes, I don't believe you're wasting your money in doing a feasibility study. This is, I think, a good way of connecting to the public and working with them through a big capital purchase of this nature.
I think it's a step forward. I mean, we've all been on a tour of the building. clerk, will tell you,
Sure.
she's had a
Something's
raccoon
gotta
or
be
two
done.
in her office, I think, and we've had, if you go to the police department, you see water during heavy rains coming into the
I
building.
question with the split committee, if we shouldn't lean toward local engineers, architects.
The Dilly and Traxel and Horner Schifrin, since they're both local.
Building Tracks have got 3 bids. I mean,
Yeah, and
am I right?
GHN, yeah, correct. But GHN paired with Smith and Company. So they both have a local piece to it, but no, I mean, it was a tough vote, I mean.
Yeah, it was. Most of the committees I've sat on have been, pretty much, everybody wanted this one company. With this, it was a little split. There wasn't a whole lot of difference. Like I said, everybody thought all of them were professional and could do a good job, so.
In light of that, we ought to lean toward our local.
Well, again, that's why we're here. We defer to our council. That's why we defer to you guys to make
I
this.
agree with you.
know,
I
so-
do too. We need to stick with our local.
Being that close, we ought to
I understand.
I think like Mr. Kaplan said, Smith and Company is a local firm also. When we have this committee that made the decision, I feel that we ought to stay with what the committee recommended.
That's true, there's two local aspects to it. Anything further? Does anyone have a motion to move this to the voting session January 5th?
I'll make a motion to move the voting session January 5th, 2015.
Second?
Motion is second to move item
Madam Mayor,
G. Yes?
clarify which company we're using, please.
That's why I question, do we need to specify the company in this motion, or?
That's the action that's being recommended by the committee.
I make a motion we do Traxel. Excuse me. Traxel Company, Poplar Bluff.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's going to be a motion and a second to move item G to the voting session on January 5th with a recommendation of Dilly and Traxel
Right.
Yes.
because they're local.
And who else was with them?
Horner and Schifrin.
I'm sorry, I couldn't talk very well tonight. Excuse me. Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, the city council will review a disaster recovery plan for the city of Poplar Bluff.
Madam Mayor.
I'd like to address the council.
Oh, sure.
Bob McDonald, Smith and Company Engineers, Poplar Bluff. Did I understand you all to say you didn't think Smith and Company was local?
No, they said that Dilly and Traxel was local, that's what they
And
wanted.
Horner
The
Schifrin
architect.
from St. Louis?
Horner Schifrin has an office in Poplar Bluff.
Yeah, and Toth, where are they from?
The architect was from Springfield.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
We've been in this town since 1968, 45 employees right here in Poplar Bluff. And my understanding is you feel like you're going with the most local? Is this about local? Is that what it's about?
We have a local architect,
Yeah?
and we have a local engineering firm.
So your decision is based on local?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't consider us local?
We don't consider the architect local.
Okay, that's what it's about?
Excuse me?
That's where your motion comes from?
Yes.
All right, thank you, that's all I want to know.
Thank you.
Okay. Item H, the city council will review a disaster recovery plan for the city of Poplar Bluff. Is there someone here to address that?
I could start, and then I got some people I can defer to if I could, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, I get through all these proposals, get to the item on the agenda real quick. Just bear with me here. Jeez, oh, Pete's. Guess we gotta have proposals that are not, oh, here we go. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. When, on December the 9th, myself, the police department, the fire department, the city collectively, we were there with the county, we were there with elected representatives, we were there with also Mr. Sean, who was chairing the meeting. We were there with Ozark Foothills, we were there with well, I'm not sure if I'm missing anyone else. Oh, TRC was there, of course. Dr. Payne was there. But basically, I thought it was a very timely meeting to discuss our dispatch center and our emergency response infrastructure. And it's something that has concerned me since I've been here. When I was in Muskegon County, I was the county elected. I'm sorry, not elected, appointed official that sat on the board for the Muskegon County 911. And I was looking for a similar structure here, and it's right now it's kind of loose knit. It's not quite the same structure. It's not even close. And with that, right now as it exists today, you've got 2 dispatch centers that are within the city limits. You've got the city of Poplar Bluff, and then you have Butler County. And they are literally right across the street from one another. And the discussion that was talked about was the consolidation of these 2 dispatch centers into a unified consolidated 911 center. And one, not only are the efficiencies good, I think it better serves our public. One, it makes us a lot safer, at least makes us more proactive to deal with emergencies and disasters in regards to how we're dealing with it now. Right now, it would maybe shock a lot of people to know that radios really is our primary method of communicating between officers that are on the road or between dispatching officers. Any one point in time, do we know where an officer is? Yes, if they tell us, but we don't have any electronic data to support where an officer is. We don't know if we're being efficient with our coverage. We don't know, where our fire trucks are at a particular time, unless they obviously tell us. We'll know from the dispatch. We're not terribly efficient. Now, the 1930 technology of radios has, one, it's stable. Obviously, if all else broke down, it's nice to know it's there, but to have this as our only primary method of communicating between emergency response professionals, in my opinion, folks, is very concerning. Another thing to keep in mind, as I have to keep reminding myself, is the city sits in a earthquake area, with the good news of, if there is ever a good news about earthquake, what there isn't, is on the west side of the river, the Black River. We're not going to be completely liquefied. Our soils aren't going to be completely liquefied here. There we have an opportunity to not only take care of a very pressing need here locally by consolidating 911 resources into a joint unified center, but I think we can also very quickly set the foundation for a regional dispatch center that serves not just Butler County, but the greater region, because if you think about if there was a major F5 tornado, EF5 tornado, or if there was an earthquake, heaven forbid the big one does hit again, we're going to be it, folks, where we're going to be setting up shop through Three Rivers Community College, and we have to be ready. We can't just wait for it to happen and then come here and say, okay, let's build it. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. We have a very aggressive plan to move forward with a structure to where we can quickly unify the employees of both of these departments of the city and the county. But also, before we even do that, we have to have the infrastructure to support it. And the city now is very poised to be able to do that with the major investments that the city has made towards information technology. And I'm going to repeat, it's not just the servers, not just the phone systems. The MDTs that are going into police cars, folks, these are things that most police departments across this nation have. You're now just starting to deploy body cameras, which are starting to come out once we get trained. We'll be one of the first departments that fully deploys body cameras to all officers. And so now's the time to take some action to further expand upon that investment to make sure that we are protecting not only the citizens of Poplar Bluff, but jointly with our partners in Butler County, we can protect the citizens of Butler County. You know, we have 40% of all population in this one city. And one thing I did not know, I learned something from this meeting because I was a little ornery, I guess, at the meeting as to, well, if we have 40% of the population, we should be only paying 40% of the cost. And I was pointing to Butler County as they should be 60%. But what I was alluding to in that comment was there was more public safety departments outside of the sheriff's department and Poplar Bluff. I was very quickly reminded that that is not the case. So basically, in Butler County, you have either two things that are going to go on here. You're going to either have a sheriff's deputy or you're going to get a PB police officer. That's it. That was a wake-up call for me. And so I quickly retreated from my position of 40-60 to more or less we're going to have to lead this charge because one, if the staging area for an emergency disaster is going to be TRC, folks, that's right in our city limits, one. Two, we have made a major investment towards IT that's well and beyond that exceeds the technology that's going to be available for Butler County. We can share that technology with them now. Thirdly, it just, again, puts us in the mainstream of best practices of how to put together and organize a 911 response, like I said, not just locally, but abroad. So with that, Madam Mayor, also I've invited Mr. Sean to be here as well to either one, make any comment, or two, answer any questions you may have regarding this proposal because it comes in two folds. One is we'd like the blessing of this board to work towards the process of consolidation with Butler County, which will mean we will repurpose our 8 or so full-time dispatch employees to this center. They'll still be city employees, they'll still have city benefits, but they'll be dispatched to this center, and they'll be under the direction of Mr. Sean. And then the county would, in kind, do the same thing with their personnel. And again, instead of having 2 911 centers, so basically instead of, let's say you dial 911 and that call goes to Butler County, those precious seconds it takes to transfer that call back to here, then for us to pick up the call for where it left off is sometimes will be the difference between life and death. So we got that one, consolidation. The second piece is moving forward with the infrastructure we would need to make sure they have the support they need to be able to adequately, move forward with the service, but two, to be able to support it. And the city would be able to do that. So, Mr. Sean, am I missed anything so far?
No, that's a good start. Jeff Sean, Butler County EMA, Madam Mayor and Council. That was a pretty good outline of what we're talking about. Some of the things I might add would be it's really all about public safety, because with what we have right now, the way it exists, it's to no defamation of the Poplar Bluff Police Department or the Butler County Sheriff's Department, but because we have these 2 dispatching units, and I won't get off into the technological weeds here because I'll get lost. That's not my forte. But what it amounts to is you could be making a phone call from your cell phone, and your dispatch need, it's an emergency if you're calling 911. You might be in the city, but you might end up calling the sheriff's department, in which case you have to be told, let me put you on hold so that you can be sent to the proper dispatch, and vice versa. Okay, and in that case, then there's precious seconds that are lost. A certain percentage of phone calls are dropped when that happens. And so it's a huge public safety issue. The interesting thing is when we began to break down the costs of this, it really boils down to we're already paying for a unified 911. We're just not enjoying the benefits of that. Because when you look at the cost of setting up 2 separate dispatch units, it really isn't the labor. The labor is going to be relatively the same, But my gosh, all the equipment that it takes to stand up 2 of those facilities is enormous. We're talking about a large 6-figure sum of money. And so the city has done some investing in that already. The county is sitting there staring in the face of a, I don't know, $500,000 plus monetary experience to update themselves. So we're all Butler County, whether we're in the city or we're not, and it just became one of those opportunities where we could place this under a new Office of Emergency Management, and EMA, which I've been heading up, would continue to be underneath that office, but we'd have a unified 911 as well. And so under that scheme, we should be able to enjoy combining some of those expenses, some of the infrastructure that already exists in the city of Poplar Bluff. And Heath was kind of referring to his, I think, natural knack for wanting to negotiate. What we really came down to in that case was, it's not a city versus county opportunity. This is what our expense is. It's very easy to come up with a scheme of sharing the cost based on the actual use. Every single phone call is recorded. There's no doubt about that, about whose phone call goes where. And so then we could just look at the total expense of that, and then the Office of Emergency Management under that scheme would be a neutral broker, would be there to if you want to look at everybody that gets dispatched as customers, we would be in charge of customer service. And so if the police had some concern about our dispatching, the police could come to us and the sheriff's department and so on and so forth. So that's the first part of it that Heath was talking about. That's an amazing opportunity that we have right now. Second part about it is trying to create a comprehensive, up-to-date emergency operations center, which we don't have. And God bless him, Chief Whiteley has always been so nice to just give up his squad room whenever we have an emergency. But frankly, it doesn't take too big of an emergency for that to overwhelm, and we need a proper EOC. And so another component of this would be to partner with Three Rivers College. Three Rivers College President Wes Payne and the board have indicated interest in this, and in fact they have a facility right now that's open that we could move into quickly. But there's a larger plan to have a regional EOC because, folks, we sit in the crosshairs. We have, on the one hand, as Mr. Kaplan rightly pointed out, we sit on the edge of one of the worst seismological locations on planet Earth, certainly one of the worst in the United States. We all know about the New Madrid Fault. And then at the same time, this is one of the deadliest places on planet Earth for tornadoes. And so all of the boot heel is going to be dependent upon Poplar Bluff. SEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, already has a mutual aid agreement with Three Rivers. If we have the big one that everybody talks about, which could happen while we're standing here right now, SEMA deploys to Poplar Bluff and sets up at Three Rivers. And if and when that big event happens, all of the boot heel is going to be dependent upon everything that happens from Poplar Bluff. We need to be capable of having a regional EOC that's competent and can be responsive. And as Mr. Kaplan pointed out, I thought very well, communications are paramount. When something bad happens, our ability to communicate is essential. And so if we can set up an EOC that will have regional capabilities because of where we are on the campus in an EF5 protected facility that's also hardened for earthquake in a partnership with Three Rivers, and then have 911 under that same roof and that same protection, that's kind of the ultimate of what we could expect. And so it's a rare situation that we could create this amazing collaboration between the city and the county and Three Rivers College to produce something that'll be phenomenal for our region. And part of the reason that Three Rivers, I think, is so interested is if we have 911 located right there, then they have a real live 911, and they could expand their curriculum to include certification for 911 dispatchers, real live 911 they can come and show. The students can do an internship. So we would collaborate and cooperate with Three Rivers to help them promote that, which I think would be good for the city and the county as well. So that's sort of an overview. Sorry it was so long. I tried to compress it all I could. And I'd answer any questions that you might have about that. But yeah, this sort of capability is phenomenal. The wonderful and interesting thing about it is we can really, if we can all agree, the county and the city side, and Three Rivers is on board, we can move forward without having to go to the taxpayers and ask for any more money. How often do you get that?
I'd like to comment my involvement with the Red Cross. First, I'd like to commend Mr. Sean for where he's taken our emergency management. We're definitely a step above where we were before he took office. But I've attended several meetings where they talked about Poplar Bluff, and you mentioned the liquefaction factor. Everything east of Poplar Bluff will disappear with this plan if the big one hits. Poplar Bluff will be the center that the state focuses on bringing resources and stuff. With this center like this, we would just be a step ahead when this disaster hits. We would be a move forward. With that said, is there not federal, state money that we can get to offset these costs too? I think that we ought to pursue that, especially with our representatives. We should be able to come up with funds that will fund this.
Well, the one thing I'd like to add on that is the first thing I talked about is I'm like, well, where's your 911 surplus funds? Well, we do get some 911 surplus funds, but it's off of landlines, and I think you're getting about 135,000 roughly a year.
Maybe even less than that. It's less every year.
Right, and right, and so now that people are migrating to cellular phones, see, in Michigan, we surplus both the wireless cell phones and the landlines, and here it's just the landlines, and actually. Representative Richardson addressed this very topic that it is up for discussion in the state, Congress, I guess the best way to put it. And I talked. It's like, where are those funds? Well, again, it's part of the deal as to, do we really want to tax our citizens further on that? And they're gonna, the way that I understood his comments was that something's gonna have to happen on funding it better, but it's gonna go on the heels of consolidation. And so that's why I was glad to hear that we were already in that direction. Because again, folks, it just does not make sense to have one street separate in two dispatch centers. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But that's why we included, Felicity was there, Mr. Winters was there from Ozark Foothills, Renisha's there. There is money there for the bricks and mortar and getting the site, because folks, Jeff was talking about the Springfield facility. It's bomb-proof, and you need something that's going to be there no matter what, because when you're talking about the worst-case scenario, the last thing you want to do is when you can't get emergency help, we're in a pretty primordial position at that time. So we want to make sure that we're going to go after all the dollars. So that's my point. Is right now I want to get us up on our feet. I want to get us up and running, because right now, folks, we're just not ready for disaster. It's amazing to me what our professionals can do with such little they've been given. I take my hat off to them every day, and I take my hat off to Mr. Sean, and what he's been given is very little. We have an opportunity. This is just and to me, it's just it feels like a calling here, that I feel like I'm meant to be here to help with this project, because I did it in Muskegon County. I'd like to do it here. Again, it's paramount that we think about the general welfare of our city. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, if you think of it as basic level, what government's for, this is it. And folks, we're not doing it. We're providing bits and pieces of it, and we can be so much better than this. And we talk about you talked about Mr. Tinsley, being, ready and being more proactive. Well, This is just to get us to where everyone else is. This is not doing anything, this is not reinventing the wheel. The good news that the city has at our disposal, that a lot of other cities have, but not all, is our own fiber network. We're going to leverage that network further to where we can, one, send back and forth communications over it, but think of that as your primary, but also we have the ability to have a primary ring of fiber, which we're going to be setting up, but also a secondary ring. But also on top of that is to have as a backup is our tower system. Not as the primary. And so it just brings us to that next level, but it's, again, best practices, and just we're not there. So what we got to ask ourselves is, do we have the courage to, one, consolidate, and then two, make sure we move forward with a major capital expenditure again. But if you go back to, the one thing I found is very interesting is Mr. Massingham found, I think with Mrs. Kirby's assistance, which I appreciate both of them doing, they found the original flyer from the when they were doing the advertisement for the half-cent sales tax in 1989. If you guys haven't had a chance to read it, I have a copy of it. You'd be really amazed to read is, one, protect public safety. And folks, I can tell you that half-cent sales tax, have we supported public safety? Nowhere near as much to the fact that we are now. We should not have officers without mobile dial units in their car. They have to hit a radio. Hello, Sally, I'm just using an example. Can you give me plate XYZ? I mean, come on. All right? I mean, they should be able to look it up themselves. And on top of that, we should be able to talk about our system from A to Z. We have an officer that writes a citation. We have a staff that repeats that process. We have court that repeats it even after that. You have a model in a court system that is one of the only paperless systems in the state of Missouri. They were one of the first. Actually, I think it was the first. And Judge Millian, he put together that program. We need to catch up with him. And we're not there yet. And this system will do that too. I mean, it just, again, it prepares us. I can talk all day about protecting your public, folks. This is how we do it. And we can do this quickly. We're hoping we can get this done by no later than mid-2015 to have that baby up, running, and operational.
Yeah, and let me add to what he was saying about legislatively and the dollars. Floor Leader Richardson assured me that whatever legislation does get through, it's not, the municipalities or counties that don't unify their 911, whenever they do figure out a way to replace those tax dollars that have been lost because of the loss of landlines, it's not going to reward counties that haven't unified. So there'll be a rush, whenever that finally gets done. But who knows if that'll be this year or the next year. But I think that we have this unique opportunity right now where we can just say, let's go ahead and have this. It isn't going to cost us any more than what we've been spending. All we need is a cooperation between these entities. And I think the groundwork has been laid for that. And I just got to say, as far as my part is concerned, all I am is a willing servant. What I'm presenting to you and what Heath is presenting to you is something that's been on the minds and the hearts of our first responders for years. And I no more than took this job and stepped in, and people started telling me, boy, it'd be great if we had, and they started telling me these stories. I'm going, it just seemed like impossible to me. But I was encouraged by the likes of Chief Whiteley and Chief Stucker and some others to don't be afraid that you don't know anything about this, just start moving forward. And so here we are. I fully understand how important this is. And guys, there's remarkable technologies that are out there that are going to save lives. This ability to give medical advice, a trained dispatcher that can give medical advice that's life-saving. I just saw on television today where a dispatcher saved somebody's life by telling a person over 911 how to give themselves the Heimlich maneuver over the telephone, and the lady was able to actually do that to herself by that instruction, and she lived to tell the tale. Well, that's a certification. You have to send someone off to school for that. And and there's more technology coming. In the future, we're going to have 911 texting. Okay, but so in order to have those things, we must rise up professionally and with infrastructure to make that happen. And that's what I think Mr. Kaplan was covering. Any more
The new
questions?
system that we've had, we're already a step toward that. The new system that we're just installing.
Oh, absolutely. You're
Yeah.
With
two-thirds there.
the
Yeah.
cameras and everything.
A lot of the groundwork has been laid.
And we will be in a prime position to be that regional office that you're talking about. And it's-
Oh, well, I mean, here's the thing, if the big earthquake happens, they're gonna come.
Yep.
The question is, how efficient are they gonna be? How much are they gonna be able to help Butler County and the other counties affected in the Boot Heel as a result? Because folks, I-55 is gonna be non-existent for God knows how long if that happens. Imagine the ramifications of that. And if you start thinking about it, I can see why SEMA's plan is to come to Poplar Bluff. If you look at your map, you look at the seismology of it, they know that, yeah, we'll have lots of damage. I'm not sure this old building would survive. We'd have lots of damage on this side of the river, but we'll still be intact and we will still exist. What Mr. Tinsley was referring to is because of the liquefaction factor in an earthquake in the sandy soils that are east of Black River. We're talking about, just unbelievable destruction to structures.
And what you just said.
It takes everything down.
Our current plan for an EOC would be to go to a building that's not gonna be here.
Right.
You
Correct.
referred to the chief's office.
Right.
We started these negotiations in the year 2000. There was a lot of talk between the city and county. It just, I don't know, at that time, just wasn't the right time, I guess, because I was there, through all the talks, we just never did manage to have an agreement. And I think now might be, sounds like with the college, well, it might be the time and place. We might be at that point in time.
I think we're to the point where we can keep talking, but it's time for action.
This is the kind of thing that I ran on. I've always said I wanted to see something in place that would, rather than waiting until something happens to try to figure out what we're going to do, we need to figure out how we can be there in the case something does happen. Because in the past, I don't know that we have always, during the flooding of 2011, that was what really caused me to want to run. So I think this is a good step towards that.
That was part of my campaign with the Red Cross experience and stuff, to bring our emergency management to the.
And working with the county,
Light of
everybody
the- light of
working
the city.
together.
Well, the key
In light
is,
of what Johnny said, I believe that Mr. Sean here is the key that brought it all together. I mean, it had to have somebody that would pick up the ball and run with it and organize it all.
well, and the key is supporting your public safety professionals. They're out there every single day risking their lives for us. We owe it to them to make sure they have the infrastructure and the support. And we're getting there quickly. Again, we got the new telephone system that's being installed. Again, we've got the new MDTs that are on their way. We've got weapons that are hopefully are going to be an item of discussion here coming up. We have to be able to, again, talk at its worst case scenario, we have to be able to communicate with the outside world, FEMA, you name it. And without a video conferencing solution, again, it's just going to be to the old Morse code system. I'm saying that somewhat facetiously, but it's, we have to, I guess I hate saying that, but you have to do something. We cannot leave our public exposed. And even if Butler County doesn't come along, which I hope they will, the city needs to do this. We have a duty to our tax-paying citizens to make sure they're protected and make sure that they always have lines of communication with the outside world, make sure we have, food supplies, water, you name it, basic human elements to survive.
Well, Mayor Pearson mentioned the 2011 flood, and Peter and I both spent a lot of time right in the middle of that. That was an example, and that was before I knew what EMA stood for. But that was an example of how our community comes together in a crisis. What all of our first responders did, and they developed a unified command, and they They just got through through that disaster, I think due to love of their community. But I think what Mr. Kaplan has pointed out is that let's give our public safety folks, let's give our first responders better tools, because it will mean it will literally be life-saving in some cases. So, any other questions?
Jeff,
Yeah.
you said Three Rivers had a building available now. Is it going to be big enough for you, or is it?
It's big enough for us to work on an interim basis, and will be very efficient. It won't be EF5, protected, but we're not going. If we can get to that point where we're operating with a unified 911 and a new EOC over at Three Rivers, it's all hands on deck. City, the county, the college has grant writers. We're all going to work. We've already talked to everybody from our senator and our congressman to our state reps. So everybody's on board. We'll move forward quickly and cohesively, I believe, in pursuing the dollars. It's going to be a bunch of dollars, but to build what it is that I believe that we ultimately would want. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have that either.
Your office will be out there then?
Yes.
Okay.
Under
Thank you.
that scheme.
So the plan is to move into like a temporary deal and then move into the building? Or?
Well, the plan is to present this to the county commissioners as well as the city at some point, but that would be the ultimate plan. And I believe that we have the relationship with Three Rivers, and they're ready to receive us. So,
I believe, like you say, it's a prime opportunity for them to increase they've already made a name for themselves training the law enforcement.
They've got the public safety curriculum. You're right,
Yes.
Peter, exactly. They have the public safety curriculum. It's very successful. They teach firefighting and law enforcement, I believe, at this time, and maybe more. And I see I don't want to get too far out there, but I see an opportunity to develop some EMA curriculum at some point. Again, we haven't really, should be focused on public safety, but at the same time, by partnering in this way, it's good for the economy of Poplar Bluff too, to constantly be bringing in for periods of time students to gain certification. So, yeah, it's all good.
Sounds like just a win-win all around.
I don't see the downside.
Okay, with all of that, does anyone have a motion to move this to the voting session on January 5th?
I'd like to go on the 29th. I'll second.
Oh, it's going to go on the 29th?
That's what I'd like it to, please.
Okay.
What?
For the 29th?
For December.
Is that okay with you?
Make a motion to move it to the voting session the 29th.
Second.
Motion is second to move item H to the voting session to be held on the 29th. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Item I, the City Council will review change order number 1 on the Oak Grove Road Phase 3 project.
Good evening. How do I get stuck behind Jeff Shawn? It's a hard act to follow. Nobody has said it this evening, so I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
We're almost
Thank
there.
you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, absolutely. Didn't mean to leave
No, I'm sorry,
anybody
I'm
out.
joking with you.
This evening, I think I've got some good news all the way around. We're happy to say that we're closing out the Phase 3 of Oak Grove Road. If you don't know where that is, it basically starts at the bypass and runs out to Township Line. Did everybody get a copy of this? If not, I'd be happy to pass one out. Would it be easier if I passed one out? Okay.
I'd like this. I'd like one.
Sure. Let me just pass one out.
Yeah, we get the black and white, right?
Thank you.
I have one. You might need that. Yeah, they have one. It's just not in color.
Yeah, we got it. Thank you, though.
Let me grab one more.
Thank you.
So, You'll have to forgive our spelling there. It's actually Oak Grove Road, not Oak Grove Road. But this is the only change order that we had on the project, and it's going to be, as I said, it will close the project out. We started with a budget of $3.7 million, estimated construction cost of $2.966 and change, an estimated non-construction cost of $734,000, rounding off. The bid construction ended up being, well, at the end of the day, it ended up being $2.466 million for a final construction cost. And we had final, that was final construction. The non-construction costs were down to $647,985, making the final total project cost $3.1 million and change. So I'm happy to report to everybody tonight that we had almost $588,000 worth of savings on the job. We're going to be able to turn back into the TDD and build something else with.
That's amazing.
We are asking for a change order this evening of $42,366, and I don't believe I've ever been involved with a project that didn't have at least one change order, which rectifies all the quantities at the end of it. And that's really what this boils down to. And it was little stuff all over the place. There's no huge items that made this up. We had some savings, we had some overages, and at the end of the day, we ended up about, well, we used a third of our contingency budget, which is, I think, by any stretch is really good news. So. Does anybody have any questions about the project? Oh, and I want to introduce John Berglund. He's an engineer with our firm here in town, and he was the inspector, and we kept all of the folks from being too mad. I think Jeremy Gradwell told me they had 3 calls the whole time, which is pretty good considering what we did with such a main thoroughfare. So. Does anybody have any questions I can answer for you?
I have a comment.
All right.
So are you saying that Horner and Schifrin is saving us $587,000, basically?
Not Horner and Schifrin. It was a combination of a lot of folks. We should give, for what it's worth, this would be a perfect time to say a big thank you to K-Jax. Mike Persons and crew bent over backwards to help us, and I can't say enough good about the job that they did out there. Not just them, but all the subs, Corbett Barnett, RLP, a variety of other folks, just did a great job. But as a team, yes, I'm here to say we saved almost $600,000, and it just it's a really good deal.
That's good, because then we can apply that to maybe overages in some other areas.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Or build something else.
It's another discussion.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'll sit down and let you guys enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I make a motion, move this to the voting session, January 5th.
Second.
Motion is second to move item I to the voting session on January 5th. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item J, the City Council will review bids received for the purchase of firearms for the police department.
Can I address that first, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is actually part of the original $5 million IT project that was approved by the City Council. And, again, this is for the replacement of firearms for the officers' rank and file. And so with that, again, we want to make sure that with today's times, we're always providing our police department with the adequate tools to be able to, one, protect themselves and the public at large. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Captain McLean to give you guys a little more detail behind the budget, how it was originally put together, and the purchase itself, the bidding process, et cetera.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm before you again. So I will start by asking if you have any questions regarding this purchase. I'm assuming that each person has a copy of the only bid that was submitted.
It's in the packet.
Okay, it is in the packet. And I reached out to the account rep with GT Distributors out of Texas that submitted the bid. It was my understanding that there were 2 companies that could have bid on this. However, they are the sole source as the guidelines set forth through Glock Manufacturing, and I have a copy for everyone that I will give to you to disseminate. And I just received that this afternoon about 4 p.m., so I apologize for getting in here late. Yep.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for him?
I think, I know the mayor brought up with the cost of ammunition. I know some of the research I looked at said 20 to 60% more than for 45 caliber.
I reached out this morning to 3 distributors of ammunition that we have purchased from in the past. I received quotes from 2 of those 3, and I anticipate number 3 tomorrow morning. I spoke with the rep by phone later on this evening. The most that I saw was $60 per 1,000 rounds. So for the 40 caliber rounds that we currently use now, there would be a $60 increase per 1,000 round case at the most. And that is that was pretty much the average for the training rounds as well as the duty rounds. The U.S. Army is going back to a 45 caliber, so I would believe that the cost of the ammunition will go down over the next several years.
Approximately how many cases do we use a year?
Well, it varies, believe it or not. Typically, we will shoot 180 rounds per officer each time that we go to the range. Multiply that on average of 50 to get the numbers, and I don't have the math in front of me yet. But you're looking at about, right now, about $380 per 1,000 for training is what we're looking at for the new, for the 45s.
The only other thing I would have is, see the 45 calibers, you know, flat semi-automatic concealable firearm. What's the need for a different caliber gun for a backup or off-duty weapon in the 380?
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. Originally, when Chief Whiteley, Deputy Chief Rowland, and myself started this discussion, and what numbers are we going to put, you know, we have to come up with a number to send to Mr. Kaplan we have to have a starting point. Originally, what we done is we looked at the Glock's model, new model 41 Gen 4 tactical practical for a sidearm, daily worn sidearm for every commissioned policeman. Then we looked at their subcompact 45 for a backup that will be issued to every officer. They will be required to carry that in addition to their sidearm. The problem with that was weight and overall size. We quickly learned that Glock had come out with a model 42, 380. They have been selling overseas for quite some time, and it was recently introduced to the U.S. market, and sales have skyrocketed. We reached out to a couple of agencies that have them, spoke to some individuals that we knew that had them, and there was nothing but praise. So what we ended up with, looking at and evaluating all of our options, we felt that for a backup weapon, taking into consideration overall length, width, and weight, that the 380 would fit the bill. Be able to be concealed and carried wouldn't be quite so cumbersome as another .45 caliber weapon.
Do we provide backup weapon now?
We do not. Some agencies do. Highway Patrol does, Butler County Sheriff's Department does. We have never, I've been here 20 years and we've never done that.
So could the Model 41, 45 caliber be carried as a backup on off-duty weapon, like they do now with the Berettas?
Well, yes, I mean, it could. It would be a large weapon to carry in a concealed manner, if we're talking just an off-duty carry, if you will. The Model 41 is the daily carry on your hip for all 44 commissioned policemen. The Model 42 is a backup to that primary weapon.
I want to make sure I understood. You're going to require, as law enforcement, you're going to require, they're going to carry the 380 as a backup weapon?
Yes,
all the time?
each officer will be required, mandated by policy, to carry Model 41 as a sidearm, if you will, duty sidearm, and a Model 42 380 caliber backup at all times while they are on duty. This is a backup weapon. This is to provide that other source should something happen.
Okay, I'd understood it was just an off-duty.
No, sir.
Weapon.
No, sir. This is a backup weapon
Saying they will carry it on their person?
I'm sorry, sir.
They will carry it on their person?
They will carry it on their person, yes. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, I know we've talked about this before. It is all about public safety, where we see times now where officers have to use their weapons, and sometimes they have to rely on just their self. We're fortunate to live in a community that we do have quick response of a backup officer, but I'd make a motion to move this forward to the voting session.
Okay. Motion is second to move item J to the voting session on January 5th. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, we've been here 2 hours and 20 minutes. We'd make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Motion is second for a 5-minute recess. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
That's what I feared.
That's gonna take a while.
People here, I can see this.
I'm tired.
I bet it's been putting a lot of hours in this. No one's ever really, I think, looked at it before.
I got 6 hours of sleep over the weekend. It's just crunching and crunching. These are numbers, like you said, that just never given to the public. Now they have it. This is your true city, what it looks like and how it operates. So,
I've done this before, just thrown out there, going to what I said.
right.
No.
Expecting to vote on it.
No, you're right. And there's a reason, there's a reason why we did that. That's about $5 million. No, do you?
No.
We just hit that. Right.
I'm fine, thanks. I torn it into my shoulder. I already been to the doctor once, I have to go back. This Friday, I don't know, gosh, he's gonna have to do something, because I'm miserable.
And I was always told. I was told. Well, this is what I was told by the guy. What's the guy that has to
I hope.
Can't remember his name. He said, I'm gonna get
No, I appreciate
He
it, there's
said
not.
if you go on credentials first, then after you got that settled, then you go to price. The price is too high. You can't pay that. You go back to credentials. That's right. No, I'm gonna ask Peter about that. We discussed that. He was, I don't remember what meeting we're at, but he sat there and told us. The guy was an engineer, he told us that. So we'll see. You better be good, buddy.
I'm cold. Go get my sweater.
About to bust. They do make a motion. Selection committee.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got you.
David made it. I second Yeah, feasibility study, we're going against the committee's recommendation.
He said you get what first.
Oh, no, that was yeah. You can't.
Wait a minute. He said he's asking.
We're on the budget.
You can select the article.
We'll re-adjourn and I'll ask
People
them
don't
to
like
adjourn.
it, so after that, he presents you a fee. If you don't like the fee, we can go back to the
Let's go ahead and resume the meeting. We're going to go to item K. The City Council will review the budget for the City of Poplar Bluff for fiscal year 2015. And at this time, I would ask all the council members to go ahead and move down here. Mr. Kaplan is going to do a presentation here. We're all going to move in the front row.
Yeah, thank you. Want me to move it back some more? Mike? This way, Jeff. Yeah. How's that? So we're not turning our back towards anyone. Good evening, Heath Kaplan, City Manager, Poplar Bluff. Before we get started with my budget presentation, first of all, we want to introduce to the council. I see you guys didn't bring your iPads with you. We'll hand them out here. We're going to give you a quick tutorial on the a web app that was designed to where you can better navigate the budget electronically. And so we got Mr. Conway, who will be presenting that piece to you first, which we will have him demonstrate on the screen for you guys and be able to ask questions. And then it'll be quick, I promise. Well, we'll give him about 3 minutes, maybe an hour. And then I'll jump into my presentation. So with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Conway, Neil Conway.
Thank you, Heath. And I wanted to thank you for allowing me to present this to you. The piece of this project that you're looking at was sort of a side project. We decided to put this on an iPad application just to be able to give you the opportunity to be able to drill down and look at the data and really be able to see some of the detail of it. So what I'm going to do is show you how to access the budget from your iPad. And what I'd like you to do first is, if you've got your iPads, if you don't, that's fine, you can just see what I'm doing, is if you'll just click on the actual icon that shows web reports. That's where you would go to actually get this data. And this is exactly like what it would look like on your iPads. You'll notice there's 4 categories. One of those is budget, of course. We also included cash, and we think in future packets we can also include updates to what is involved with your cash or current status of cash and that sort of thing. As well, this is the web, sorry guys. As well, we have a section for assets, and I think we'll continue to increase this section, giving a 5-year plan, for instance, for the enterprise fund, as well as just showing you what the current status of the fixed assets are. And for instance, I'm just going to click on one of these. This is the 5-year plan just for the governmental side of things. So you can see it building the report for the actual fixed assets, and it's showing you what the progression is between each year for each one of these fixed assets. The first one is just street construction, so you can see for fiscal year 2015, we have planned $136,000 for the street department. Moving forward, you can see 2016, 2017 going forward, all the way up to 2019. We did 5 years. But also, we put in debt, and I think that's an important part of the conversation. we wanted to make sure that you always knew what debt expenditures would be for the coming year. And so the debt summary is going to show you exactly what payments are going to be required for both your governmental side and also your enterprise side. This is working through wireless. I'm sorry, it's okay. I'm just going to move on to debt over here. The budget section of this shows you all the budgets that we prepared for you. And so this includes all the departments. It includes a summary for the government side. So you can see basically each individual department, the revenue that will come in for those departments, as well as the expenditures as it's building the report here. There we go, all the way down to cash. Each one of these departments has a separate section. So you could also see what occurs within general fund. Here's the revenue side of things. Also, down here is each department, breaking out the general fund into individual departments. So one of the ways that we wanted to give you access to your data is we wanted to be able to show you how to dive into the actual data. This is one of the departments for the city of Poplar Bluff. This is Department 10, which is General Administration. It's showing you the overall expenditures for Department 10. And I'm going to click on this plus sign, and it's going to give me all the accounts associated with that. So our intent was to tie out everything in the budget to an account so that whatever you decide as a council, we can program in and be part of the budget within the accounting system. All right. I'll just show you one more here. So this one is the Coliseum. This is a combined version of the Coliseum, and it points out what the activity was for the Coliseum per the audit reports. So you can see the net loss on this final line down here, and that's actually per the audit reports. So we have access to be able to add data to this if we need to. So if there's something on here that you want to see that isn't here, we certainly can add it. And I guess in terms of operating this, I think I've gone through pretty much how to get everywhere. If you want to go back, there is a breadcrumb trail, and so you could click here to get back to the previous screen. And of course, all this will be done with your fingers. So so you'll be doing this on your iPad. Also, if you'll indulge me for a second, I'd like to answer any questions about the services that I provide. If any one of you has any questions that I can answer, I would really like to be able to sit down with you and answer them for anything, for my rate or anything that I provide to you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Again, I thank Neil for all his efforts in putting together this this piece. Remember, this item is allowed for each council member to finger navigate. And again, you can stretch the screen out so you can make this look a heck of a lot bigger than what you see here, where you guys can click and see all that data. And it's just going to be real-time data as we update it for you. Again, this better informs the council and and the public as to what are we doing. And again, the full push here, the full court press here is to provide full transparency. If you look at, there is a Sunshine Review government transparency checklist. If you go into Google and you look it up, it'll bring you through a report card of governmental agencies throughout the United States, and they rate them, they'll grade them, A through F, and how they're doing. When I was in Muskegon County, we were an A-. And when I looked at other counties in Missouri, they'll go unnamed, they were an F. And so what it's telling you is, are we being open and we're fully disclosing information to the public? We have a lot of room for improvement. So this is a step in the right direction. And again, thank Neil for his efforts. And if you just indulge me for one quick moment, I'm just going to switch PCs and then we'll jump into the exciting part, which is my presentation. So just give me a quick moment. Where's the source one on this one? Let's try it one more time. Where is the... Close enough. Okay. Again, Heath Kaplan, City Manager, City of Poplar Bluff. It's my pleasure today to walk you through the proposed fiscal 15 budget. In each of your packets, there is a full transmittal letter that walks you through all the rationale, logic, through how the budget was put together, historical data as necessary, and so if you ever wanted the kind of the Cliff Notes version of the budget, you just look at my transmittal letter and I'll walk you through it. With that being said, let's talk about general fund. as indicated from the slide, the general fund, you got your sales tax, which is 45% of all of your revenue. In Michigan, obviously it's not the case, and I know we're not in Michigan anymore, but it's a piece that, just to share with you the huge differences in how governments work across the country. Michigan property taxes being real property and personal property is 57% of Muskegon County's budget. Here, you've got 8% real and 3%, if I remember right. Yeah, 3% your personal property. So here we have a heavy dependence on sales tax, and obviously as the sales go, so does the city. As sales drop, obviously that's when things start to hurt. And so we're very dependent on sales tax. Revenues historically, if you look at your property taxes, have been relatively stagnant. There hasn't been a whole lot of change from them. The recent changes that we've been seeing is in that sales tax piece, which is good. Bad is if you get used to those revenues, as Mr. Massingham has indicated prior, is there's ebbs and flows of everything that happens in the economy. And so we're in a little bit of an upward tick, which is not a bad thing. We'll take it as we get it. But just keep in mind that revenue that was here historically may not always be the case in future years. Talking about that new money, 8 Points Development, which has been a big source of topic in the north end of the city. Is it bringing new money into the city? Yes, it is. We're gonna talk about the opportunity cost that the city has shared in regards to gain that development. But I'll be we're gonna jump into that topic in a moment when we talk about the special allocation fund. Oops. Oh, blackout. There we go. Make sure I'm on the right one. Yep. So if you looked at your revenue sources in your general fund, you'd say, okay, if you're talking to your public as to where do you gain the most revenue, what are your top sources? Well, you've got, and I know you guys can't read this from here, but this big orange section is what we talked about, sales tax. The blue section is city utilities. They provide an enormous amount of revenue for this city. Does it help balance the government activities? Yes, it does. And so that's can't not be misstated. Is they have a huge role to play in balancing our budget. This is the franchise fee that we collect on your city utilities, electric, water, and sewer. You can see it's a very big number. Get to your real estate property taxes, your 8%. That's obviously the green section. Your business occupation licenses, the stuff that Dennis and his team does, is this brown section. And obviously gas tax refund is your little red pie there. That's your top 5 revenue producers in the general fund, which supports everything from police to fire to streets to city manager's office, clerk's office, finance office, you name it. Now, your tax base. If you took your tax base and you look at it over the last 5 years, which again we attempt to show you here, is you break down your valuation categories. You got your ag, your commercial, residential, etc., and just carry it over. You just see how your tax base has, again, increased or decreased per those categories over a series of years. The important piece, obviously, is how is this going to affect us moving forward in 15? Well, a little bit of good news is after the Board of Review, as I call it, I guess you call it BOE here, you got this is a sliver of an increase. That's good in regards to revenue, bad if you're having to pay more taxes. But with that, just keep in mind, though, is those property taxes that most of us complain about, it only equates to 8% of what our total general fund revenues are. And so I can't reiterate that more and more. Yes, we're thankful for our taxpayers. Obviously, we're here for them, but their revenue from their property taxes is 8% of what we do. Expenses. Overall, the city expenses are down. When we took in all the requests from the departments, we had a budget hole well over $500,000. We pulled together each of the department directors and said, hey, look, if we were going to piece up this pie of who's responsible for what deficit piece to make up for, we did that. We gave a monetary goal to each of the departments and said, hey, look, if you can get us this number, we'll try to figure out ways to balance this budget. And the good news is we really had good teamwork here. Every department came up with significant reductions in expenses to be able to balance this budget operationally. Now, this is before transfers, and we're going to talk about that more in a moment. But that's a good piece. Is starting at least from somewhere. You got to start with your O&M. Is getting that balanced, and that's what this budget does. If this budget is followed, it will be balanced. With that, you've got your change in healthcare expenses. This is big. Obviously, we had some concerns as to the city's finances going in the wrong direction when it comes to our healthcare expenses and our claim history. This approach looks to reverse that. We brought in a broker to analyze our current plan structure, our unbundled plan, which we had, and provide recommendations to move forward, and they did through a bundled approach. With that bundled approach, we gained proposals competitively, and we selected the second lowest bid. The lowest bid was Aetna Coventry. But however, when you looked at Aetna Coventry and compared them with Anthem Blue Cross, the networks just weren't comparable. Anthem Blue Cross had a superior network, and so we wanted to give ourselves the best bang for the buck and also our best opportunity to lower our cost of claims. And if we get the best discounts, we lower our cost. And so Blue Cross does that. And so when you see this 18% reduction, yes, it's a good number. Don't get me wrong. It's over $700,000 we're saving here. But the other thing to keep in mind is what we call an immature rate. And so with that, we have rollout from our current carrier that we have to account for, which we are. And so really when you're looking at this rate from Blue Cross Blue Shield or any of them, it's a rate that's 9 months more. So really you're looking at costs of 9 months. Now we're hoping that the trend continues in regards to us lowering our expenses, lowering our claims, lowering our cost. But to give full disclosure to the public is we are taking the opportunity of switching providers, but we're doing so what we call with an immature rate, where we are lowering our expenses, but however, it may be a temporary blip. We'll know more in 2016 if this trend continues where we can continue to lower our cost of health care. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but it's going to be challenging. But the good news, at least for the 15 budget, is we lowered our expenses. Also, a couple of new things that we're going to be deploying in 15 is new purchase cards. Instead of credit cards, we're going to have P cards, which is basically like a debit card, but we'll have budget controls on each card. If you want to load a card with $50, or if you want to load a card with $5,000, we'll have that ability to change that per the department proxy. And so with that, though, we have a better control over our expenses. Also, we have a better way of monitoring those expenses over time. And with that, with the spend that we're participating in with Commerce Bank, is we are brought together in an aggregate pool to where we can get rebates as a pool. And so dependent on our level of spend, and again, the spend will be dependent on, obviously we want to follow our budget, is we will get rebates that will come back to each department. So I know that next question, are we going to use to balance the general fund? Yes, but it will balance each department. So the police department gets the lion's share of the rebate. They get the lion's share of that rebate. It's not going to go into a pool where we all break it up. It will go to each department that uses those cards and garners those savings. Also, you'll see that there's a major push towards reinvesting in our capital assets, which we talked about several meetings in a row now, from our IT investment to the new 911 center we're hoping to invest in, to our roads that need to be paved, sidewalks that need to be constructed, to our drainage issues that are well profound throughout our community. We're going to be making an aggressive push and reinvestment in those depreciating assets throughout our community. So expenditures, which departments, if you took the top 4 of them, which equals 77% of our overall expenditures on the general fund. What are they? Obviously, number one by far is police. But that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In every city I've been in county, this is the case. It's just there's not a whole lot of options to fund police departments outside of your local tax base. In Michigan, you can put together special policing districts that can tax differently there. But outside of that, those are the 2 different ways. That's it. So this is not uncommon to see the police department weigh so heavily on the general fund. Same with fire. Again, same story there. Is you look, throughout the United States, you're going to see these types of ratios just about anywhere. And so I'm not concerned with how heavy police is. I'm not concerned with how heavy fire is. I'm just showing the council and the public at large where are we spending your taxpayer dollars. And the majority of it by far are in those 2 departments. But also following that is you got your street department, which is the green. Then you got your finance department, which is a little brownish red, I guess I'll call that. But to give you an idea, the difference is this little finance department is 4.02% of your overall expenses, compared to your police department, which is 38%, a little over 38%. So again, where we spend our money, that's where we're spending our money when it comes to the general fund. I keep hitting that blackout button. Okay, now let's talk about the enterprise side of the ledger. And by far, your electricity utility is by far the number 1 source of your revenue, and it's your number 1 source of expenses. And it's just a very enormous utility. But with that, there's a lot of things that I see about your utility that is for the good. Your depreciated assets, you have a relatively young system compared to other comparable markets that are out there or municipalities. But with that, I hope to shed light on the public as to why am I looking at your electric rates? Well, it's your number 1 expense by far on your utilities. I think I would be derelict in my duties as your city administrator not to look at it. And when you're 84% of all your enterprise dollars are going towards your electric utility, and 87% of all your revenues are coming in from that utility, I think you need to look at it, because the numbers are quite deceiving, because we're going to show you in a moment the operational losses that the utility has suffered over the years, and we can't continue that trend. So with that, working with the advisory committee for the utilities, and we're going to put together a financial projection and then a rate design. And with that, we're going to continue to work through the advisory committee and core staff, and then eventually that recommendation will be brought here for city council consideration. I know these things that we talk about are not popular topics. We don't like talking about taxes. We don't like talking about utility rates. But unfortunately, folks, these are the things that we depend on. When you turn on your lights, that's, you want to make sure that you're always going to have your lights on. You want to make sure your fridge is always going to run. That doesn't happen out of pure magic. The utility has to be healthy and it has to be sustainable. Same thing with the other utilities in water and sewer. But by far, you'll see water and sewer expenses don't concern me nowhere near as much as your electric utility does. Black River Coliseum. Again, I want to start showing you a pattern. The things I've been talking about are showing you that they're your number 1 and number 2 problems that are potential for risk for this city. You have a Black River Coliseum that turned in a budget that was 18.5% revenue, different from the year we're in right now. I mean, that can't continue, folks. It just cannot continue. That means your operational losses for 15 are going to be well exceeded what you've seen before, if the pattern doesn't change. Now, the good thing with this is, again, we're working through the advisory board of the Black River Coliseum, and we're working with staff. I see Bobby back there in the back. He's been very receptive. His staff has been very receptive. I think we're encouraged that we can do something here to get our arms around this. And that's what we're going to be doing in fiscal 15 is, yes, we still have planned operational losses in the Black River Coliseum in fiscal 15, yes, but we're taking full use of that time to put together a better sustainable plan moving forward. So 16 will have a lot better handle on our expenses for the Black River Coliseum than we have today. Airport, again, enterprise activity now, which you've always seen before for some reason on your governmental side. It doesn't belong there. It's an enterprise activity. The big change there is we have our mechanic that retired, and we have an opportunity to provide a lease with a gentleman that, if everything works out through the advisory board, I'm hoping that that'll be a good plus for continuing revenue stream that we've been used to at the airport. But it's not to say we don't have operational issues at the airport. We are running a deficit, and we're looking to narrow that gap by looking at revenue sources where we can. And I think by investing more in the mechanic shop, it presents an opportunity for us to gain more revenue where we can. I hit it again. Okay, top 4 revenue sources. We talked about number 1, being obviously the electric utility, but would you be surprised at the top 4 categories across your whole spectrum of enterprise? Would it be surprising then they're all electric? No. And so with that, you got commercial in the blue. These are commercial rates, so whatever we gain in revenue, that's the blue piece. Orange piece, residential. I guess brown is I'll keep calling it, your power sales. Green, your wholesale power. Again, it's a very enormous utility. I take my hat off to Bill Buck and his staff, because what a ginormous utility to handle just on its own, let alone handling it with other utilities. Your general fund expenditures are $11.6 million. This monster is well above that, and so you're 3 times as much in this utility, and so that's why we need to pay close attention to it, make sure it's sustainable, make sure it's healthy. I think it's well run, but I think we just need to always have these discussions to make sure we're doing the right thing for the utility moving forward, and in turn doing the right thing for our customers. So expenses. Again, we talked about the electric department. Your distant second, like it says on the screen, water and sewer, 10%. It just shows you the huge difference in expense between them. Black River Coliseum. Again, Bobby's going to think I'm picking on him. I'm not. It's an opportunity, and it's a risk. It's a risk that we have a lot of revenue that's being poured into that facility. And again, I understand that the voters voted for that facility. They voted for it to be built, and they voted to pay for its debt. We're doing that. We're following our obligation. But I think our voters deserve to where we can be more efficient with our dollars when it comes to Black River Coliseum. And we're going to make a major full court press to do that. So again, we're going to move forward. Expenses are going the wrong way. Revenues are going the wrong way. I don't want to be cynical or depressing, but we do have a lot of work to do when it comes to Black River Coliseum. But I feel good about where we are with the advisory board. I feel good with where the employees understand the magnitude of the problem, and we're going to address it. Again, and also capital investments. Capital investments with the utilities are different. You'll see that when you look at your 5-year capital improvement plan, it does not include your utility capital investments, because your rates pay for those investments. New electric poles, new vehicles, etc. Now, do we have the ability to provide additional capital to the utilities through our half-cent sales tax? Yes, and we're doing that. $2.2 roughly million has been budgeted for new meters. Again, depending on where those bids come in, hopefully it'll be that or less. That's a major investment towards keeping our rates down. Imagine $2 million being on the rates. That gives you an idea that would increase your rates if we didn't use our half-cent sales tax money for that purpose. Expenses, again, looking at your electric expenses, because again, they're in the huge majority of where your expenses are going on the enterprise funds. And so, number one is your Grand River Dam Authority bill? I think that's what it is. Yeah, thank you. Is your number one. Number two is your Plum Point. 3 is your Southwestern Power Authority. Your brown area here is your MISO. And of course, you know, we can never talk about accounting without talking about depreciation. And so that's, you know, of course, your, and then also the wielding, the wielding charges from SWPA. And so this shows you again where your money's going when you're paying your electric bill. This is where your expenses are going. But again, it's to provide you with the power at its cheapest available source. And so we're going to continue to provide you with those sources, and let's hope that we can keep those costs low on everyone. If I keep hitting that button every time. Special Allocation Fund. Now, this is new. In 2012, the City Council approved an ordinance to put together a TIF authority. With that TIF authority, they set in mind a base year of 2011. So any incremental assessed value above that 2011 base year is being captured into the TIF authority within the boundaries. And so with that, you had all of fiscal 2012. You had all of fiscal 2013. And you have what's left of 14. Well, 12 and 13 never got captured, meaning that we have got funds that are commingled right now together with others, government funds that belong to the TIF authority. That's another huge reason why Mr. Conway was brought in, to get a handle at ASAP, and Mark's being very instrumental in finding that data as well. But I just wish I could advocate to the public the reams of data that we have been pouring through since August 18th. And I can tell you, Neil and I were just talking about today at lunch, we're exhausted, we're tired. You know, we're thankful that this budget is almost behind us because there has been a major full court press towards getting you as exact figures as we can, but also provide you with full disclosure. Special Allocation Fund, folks, you're about ready to see it's over $700,000 a year capture throughout all the taxing authorities in Butler County. Why wasn't that a part of your budget? It should have been a part of your budget, and it is a part of your budget, and we are cleaning it up. These are the things that I think get lost in the shuffle when you read a newspaper and people are alarmed to an expense of an accountant. They're alarmed to an expense of a city manager and his assistants. Well, folks, my budget is 2.51% of your general fund. But you know what? You got a paper that's going to focus on that. I don't get it. But you're not going to focus on a $700,000 a year special allocation that should have been done since fiscal 12. Don, I hope you're taking notes. So with that special allocation fund, let's talk about it for a minute. We got two pieces here. We got TIF revenues and we've got municipal revenues. TIF revenues. So you take in that value as we talked about through your payment in lieu of taxes, and you're pulling that in. And you know, of course it's at 50%. Okay, you got that piece of the pie. Then you got your municipal revenues. Now this is where it gets really interesting. The city, through its redevelopment agreement with 8 Points, negotiated that everything that's sales tax related, being our 1 cent general and our half-cent capital improvement money, if you took all that money in that new money and you throw it into one pot. So let's talk about this and make sure everyone understands this. You got the new Menards, you got the new Walmart that's going to be joining us in January 7th. Dennis, where's my Dennis at? Right, okay, thank you. You got the sales going to be generated from that, okay? 50% of that new revenue is going into this special allocation fund? 50%. Okay, now let's talk about the other half of that equation, shall we? The other 50%, 70% of that, gone. Put into another fund that pledges security against debt. City can't touch it. It either gets used. So if there's a default, that gets used. If there isn't a default, it still sits there in escrow until the end of the period. 23 years, folks. That leaves 30% of 50% for the city. That's it. So new revenue, let's talk about it. For every $100 collected, every $100 collected, $50 goes into the pilot's account, go into the other half. You got $35 that's going into the security account for the community revenues, $15 coming into the city. That's new money. I'm not going to lie. $15 on every 100, folks. That was the deal that was signed, sealed, and delivered. I got two words for what we call that: corporate welfare. But again, wasn't accounted for, now it's accounted for. Debt. We talked about, again, how our public's been misled and misinformed. Debt. There is not any general obligation debt. Zero. Zero for the city of Poplar Bluff. The debt that we are carrying on enterprise and government alike is tied to revenues. Black River Coliseum, half-cent sales tax. The new capital improvements we're making in IT is on that half cent. And again, everyone's concerned about spending. Folks, you passed an ordinance for half-cent sales tax. It has one purpose: capital improvements. One purpose. Should we just sit on it? Let it sit there while every asset around is depreciating? Our buildings, our cars, equipment for our police department, our gravel streets. But no, I guess certain individuals that go unnamed want to ring that bell of panic, because I'd simply want to leverage the very funds that were promised to you. You were promised, hey, look, if you let us collect a half-cent sales tax, we will invest those in streets, we'll invest them in buildings, we'll invest them in roads. How many in this room think we've done that? I can tell you what things you've used that half-cent sales tax for that's not allowable under the law. But I'm following the law, and then I get criticized for it. Again, I know it's part of the job. I know it's part of the scrutiny of being a city manager. But the part that's so disheartening is to the extent and length that an agenda is being spun to blind you from the truth. What agenda, folks, can I possibly have coming from Michigan? Capital planning. We have now a 5-year capital improvement plan. Now, it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. I can tell you that right now. We've got such enormous needs for capital. Folks, we don't have enough money for it all. I wish we did. But I've had to make some very hard choices. For example, street department. We have a street sweeper that is on its last legs. It's a very expensive vehicle to replace. Instead of replacing it in 15, we're trying to get it through until 16. Jeremy's told me that's a risk. I know it is. If it breaks down, I'll tell you what, everyone wants their streets swept. I know that. And on top of that, that street sweeper doesn't just sweep streets. It can vacuum up twigs, leaves. And so there's a lot of competing capital items that need to be addressed, and we're addressing them through this capital improvement plan. It'll be really reevaluated on an annual basis to make sure that, for example, if our street sweeper has gone afoul, we're going to have to make adjustments. We're going to have to move it forward, and then we're going to have to set some other priorities behind. But we have the revenue source to take care of them. This has to be handled incrementally. And that's what our plan attempts to do. And again, that's what's paying for our new fire trucks. It's the same money. Instead of us buying new police vehicles, we're going to do a governmental lease program. We're going to leverage our dollars perfectly to the budget. And again, I want to make this as clear, is I cannot put these 9, 10 half-cent sales tax monies into the general fund to offset operational losses. I can't give it to Bobby at the BRC for his losses. I can't do that. I can pay his debt on his building, and that's all I can do with it. And I can help him with capital expenditures, which he's going to need himself, as that building is aging. So I'm excited to offer you guys like I said, a new approach to how we handle these capital investments. Cash overview. Cash is king. Is right now, as you guys know, from the sale of the cable franchise to just the funds we have them in reserves, we have an opportunity to protect those resources. If we do not protect those resources by putting under a microscope the Black River Coliseum or potentially the electric utility, if it doesn't come out of the operational losses, then folks, where do you think that money comes from? It comes from your reserves. That's where it'll come from. That's where we'll have to take it out of. And so that's why I want to make sure that right now you got extremely strong reserves. And that's why you attain such a strong credit rating in fiscal 2012. But even with that strong credit rating, folks, there was some huge holes that Standard & Poor's is showing you that are concerns. A lot of them are these. They know, folks, how to read a financial statement. They know your airport's losing money. They know your BRC is losing money. You know, they know your golf course is losing money. And if you don't address it, they will. It's called a credit rating. So again, the reason why I'm pushing so hard on Black River Coliseum and other issues is to protect that money. Okay? Labor. Again, how many positions? 239. Am I got it right? Yeah, 239. What's the breakdown of those positions? That's where all of your money goes. So as I'm turning a little bit, 149 jobs of those are general government activities. Of that, 136 of them are general fund. Yours truly is one of those 136. Then you got on the enterprise side, 90. I find that interesting when you look at the analysis is, electric department, you got 50 individuals that are bringing in, what, 87% of the overall enterprise activity. I mean, that's amazing. That's efficient. That's not bad. I mean, I would even labor a guess that we're somewhat understaffed there. But you cannot deny that you're efficient there. And so with that, 239 positions, $10 million, almost $11 million worth of salaries, and you got $4.5 million worth of benefits that's paid for those 239 positions. Now, benefits. It's something we're going to have to work on, and it's going to take some time. Is every time we have a new collective bargaining agreement that's up for expiration, which we do in 2015, is we're going to have to go to the negotiation table in good faith with our unions to see where we can save money on those benefits. Pension benefits are expensive. OPEB benefits are expensive. Other post-employment benefits are expensive. I'm not looking to take anything away from anyone, but I am looking to be more efficient with these dollars. And so one of the areas that we're forced to be efficient, folks, it's not because of me, it's because of the federal government, is we've got the Affordable Care Act. And if you look at our progression of our value of our insurance plan, even today through the reduced cost we got with Blue Cross, if you take the most expensive plan, which is the family plan, you project that with medical inflation forward to 2018, we're going to be above the $27,500 threshold for Cadillac tax. So it means that they will assess the city with a 40% excise tax for every plan we carry that's above that threshold, 40% of the plan. That is extremely expensive, and it's meant to penalize you to the extent you won't even think about going anywhere near that threshold. And so we have an opportunity through negotiating with our unions that we're going to have to find a way to, again, negotiate in good faith, bringing down the value of those benefits to make sure that we're not going to cross that threshold for 2018. Now, I'm going to put a little caveat on that. That assumes that the Affordable Care Act is going to survive. When you talk to folks at Aon, I think components of it are going to be disassembled. Now that you've got a successful Republican election, they control Senate and of course, the House of Representatives. I think they're going to systematically start dismantling the Affordable Care Act. And to be honest with you folks, even it's coming from a Democrat, that's not a bad thing. This is a bad deal for us. I've not supported the Affordable Care Act. It's only increasing our healthcare cost for municipalities with stretched dollars. And so it's this one of those things we'll have to deal with. Tax levy. One of the first things that Pam reminded me of what we passed in August was our levy that sets our in place for our next fiscal year, which again we left it at the 53 cents for our general fund, of course the 10% for police and fire pension. We could have increased it by a stitch. It just wasn't worth it for $8,000 more of revenue. And, you know, I think you have to show your public good faith measure that you're not looking at every opportunity to raise taxes. And I think we're good. I think we got enough revenue as long as our sales tax dollars hold up, which we hope they will, and we make better use of new money like grant money from federal and state government, even local charitable organizations or foundations. We're looking to bring in new money to take care of demolition of substandard buildings. We're looking to rehabilitate the ones that are close in standards. You're going to see just an aggressive effort to try to rattle the trees to get us more grant dollars. Ozark Foothills, folks, does a very good job for this community in this region, but they represent a very great, large region. We wanted someone to focus just on the city, to look at more dollars, and that's why we brought in Renisha. Now she has a temp assistant right now, but again, the deal is that if she doesn't bring in enough grant dollars to offset those costs, then obviously, one, the grant position is not going to survive, and neither will obviously the temp. And Renisha knows that's the deal. But I got to give her the support to make a major push to get us more dollars, new dollars. Any questions regarding the proposed budget? I know I see a lot of you are yawning and almost 10 o'clock, so any questions whatsoever that can help answer from anyone in the public, anyone in the council? Yes, sir.
Just have a comment. I've been involved in a lot of national associations, state associations, trade associations, board. It's one of the most thorough presentations I've seen, and that shed a light on a lot of things.
Well, I appreciate that, Dr. Rushing, but what I'd like to acknowledge, though, which is in my transmittal letter, is this was a collective effort of a lot of people. Myself, of course, I mean, you got Neil Conway, you had the directors, you know, Pam, Mark, Bill Bach, you know, Jeremy, you got the police chief, Bobby, Clark to the left of them. This wasn't just me. This was a collective team effort. And one thing I'm proud about with this team is they came together and they want to help one another. And that goes for utilities as well. I can't tell you folks, without Bill Bach's assistance, we wouldn't have balanced our budget. And I appreciate that, and I've told him that. You know, I want to show him that support in kind. And so it's the one thing that no one can criticize the city of Poplar Bluff proposed budget is it absolutely has every single fund that's on the ledger, in addition to the special allocation fund. But it breaks down everything for you: your debt, your capital, you know, your operations, your position control. I mean, you got, if you looked at our tab that has our positions on it, Dr. Russian, it has every single position, not by the name of the person, obviously, but what they make by salary, what's their benefits, and then we break down their benefits further: medical, dental, anything else. We want to fully disclose to everyone what we're making. So the next time I get a sunshine request from one of our local newspapers, there's the data. It's already there. It's ready to go. It just has to be updated. So I appreciate it, but I can only take a very small credit in what it took to crunch this data. It was a collective effort of everyone here, and we had a very short period of time to do it. Typically, this process, I'd like to reserve 6 months to do a budget. We had 3. And we're all pretty tired. Some of us are even a little cranky. But I'm just telling you guys, this could not have been accomplished without all of us come together. This was a good team approach, and I feel like everyone supported me, and I hope that they feel like I supported them. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, moving forward, just to give you guys the quick process, on the 29th, we'll have this on the agenda for the council's consideration, meaning it'll be adopted if that's what they intend to do. The other thing that we're getting aggressively caught up is the fiscal 14 bank reconciliation, so you'll know your cash position, obviously, for 14 before you vote on 15. And so now, does that mean we're, and just to, you know, full disclosure, are we running the deficit in 14? Yes, we are. And are we trying to minimize it where we can? Yes, but again, what I mean by deficit, it's the operation and maintenance side. It's not because of capital improvements. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, then also the transmittal letter plus other information of the city will be posted on the city's website ASAP. Once the city has taken action, it'll be all posted, so it's all ready to go. Thanks again for everyone's patience, and sorry for the long meeting. Yours and Betty's? Is that Johnny's or no? I hit somebody. Robert, I think we're going to 3 on this side, right? Right. Is that you, Betty? One more right here then. Robert, we need a motion. Robert.
Is everyone awake?
Nope. Yep.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions in regards to the budget? Do we have any motions?
Need a motion moving forward?
Yes, to December 29th.
Second.
Motion and second to move item K to the December 29th voting session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action required items. Bill number 7761. The City Council will take action on an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Utility Financial Solutions LLC to complete a 5-year financial protection and a financial projection.
Projection.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And a 1-year rate design for the electric department.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of bill number 7761. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor of the City of Poplar Bluff to execute an agreement with Utility Financial Solutions LLC to complete a 5-year financial protection and 1-year rate design for the Municipal Utilities Department.
Move for second reading.
Second.
You might want to change it to projection on your...
Projection, yes.
Protection.
Projection.
Motion is second for second reading of bill number 7761. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor of the City of Poplar Bluff to execute an agreement with Utility Financial Solutions LLC to complete a 5-year financial projection and a 1-year rate design for the Municipal Utilities Department.
There's a correction on that. Correction real quickly, I apologize. The original proposal was a 5-year projection, but for the $9,000, it's a 1-year financial projection and a 1-year rate design. That's for the $9,000. So that should say 1 year.
Do we need to make a motion to amend that?
Yes.
Make a motion, we make the correction to 1 year.
Second.
Motion and a second to make the correction to 1 year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any further comments or questions on bill number 7761?
Move for adoption.
Second.
Motion and second for adoption. Roll call.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir.
Yes.
Councilman Branham.
Yes.
Councilman Tinsley.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russian.
Yes.
Mayor Pearson.
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes.
Bill number 7762, the City Council will take action on an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a contract awarding a bid for the Industrial Park Drainage Improvements Project.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of bill number 7762. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor to execute a contract awarding the bid for the Industrial Park Drainage Improvements Project.
Move for second reading, bill number 7762.
Second.
Motion and second for bill number second reading of bill number 7762. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri authorizing the mayor to execute a contract awarding the bid for the Industrial Park Drainage Improvements Project.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Motion is second for adoption of bill number 7762. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Councilwoman Abshir.
Yes.
Councilman Branham.
Yes.
Councilman Tinsley.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russian.
Yes.
And Mayor Pearson.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Okay. Bill number 7763, the City Council will take action on an ordinance approving an annual budget appropriating the city's local share payments in accordance with ordinance number 6837 and the cooperation agreement between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, the City of Poplar Bluff, and the Highway 67 Corporation Cooperative Agreement.
Move for first reading of bill number 7763.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of bill number 7763. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of Poplar Bluff, Missouri adopting an annual budget appropriating the city's local share of payments, sales tax for funding a portion of the construction of the Highway 67 project in accordance with ordinance number 6837 and the cooperative agreement between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, the City of Poplar Bluff, and the Highway 67 Corporation.
Move second reading.
Second.
Motion and second for second reading of bill number 7763. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of Poplar Bluff, Missouri adopting an annual budget appropriating the city's local share of payments, sales tax for funding a portion of the construction of the Highway 67 project in accordance with the ordinance number 6837 and the cooperative agreement between the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, the City of Poplar Bluff, and the Highway 67 Corporation.
Move for adoption of 7763.
Second.
Motion is second for adoption of 7763. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Councilman Branham?
Yes.
Councilman Tinsley?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman DeGuris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russian?
Yes.
Mayor Pearson?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Bill number 7764, the City Council will take action on an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an equipment lease purchase agreement for the purchase of pumper trucks.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Motion is second for first reading of Bill number 7764. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, authorizing the city of Poplar Bluff to enter into an equipment lease purchase agreement in connection with the acquisition of certain equipment for the city and authorizing the execution of certain documents and actions in connection therewith.
Move second reading.
Second.
Motion is second for second reading of Bill number 7764. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, authorizing the city of Poplar Bluff to enter into an equipment lease purchase agreement in connection with the acquisition of certain equipment for the city and authorizing the execution of certain documents and actions in connection therewith.
Adopt.
Second.
Motion is second to adopt Bill number 7764. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Councilman Tinsley?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman DeGuris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Abshir?
Yes.
Councilman Branham?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Russian?
Yes.
Mayor Pearson?
Yes.
We have 6 yes votes.
Okay. Moving on to item EE, the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff will meet in a closed meeting in which they will discuss such matters which are exempted under the Open Meetings Law, Section 610.021.1 RSMO litigation, Section 610.021.2 RSMO real estate, and Section 610.021.3 RSMO personnel.
Madam Mayor, make a motion, to move into closed session after city manager's report.
Second.
Motion is second to move into closed session after the city manager's report. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Kaplan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to be as brief as possible given the late hour. But I do appreciate the opportunity to talk with the public and the council today. The one thing I wanted to bring out in light of events that occurred last week in regards to our police department, which obviously I can't go into the details of the event, but it was an event in which it was unfortunate where loss of life occurred, but our police department acted in accordance to their training and in accordance to the law. Our police department is one of our most valuable assets, and I take my hat off to Chief Whiteley and the staff for handling these pressures on a day-to-day basis. The reason why I say that is because I hope that the members of the community support the police department, and I know they do, but they need to show their daily support for that department, either by sending a thank you letter, the shaking a hand, anything that shows the admiration and respect we have for these officers that serve in the line of duty every single day. I'm disappointed because instead of showing support, we had a local paper that decided to trash them. And it's hard not to even talk about without being emotional. But what the SEMO Times did in their article was disgusting. And I disappointed is not even, it would be just a diplomatic way of putting it. I challenge the SEMO Times. I think they owe the police department of Poplar Bluff an apology. I think they owe the community an apology. Those officers did their job, period. We support them. We don't discredit them. And I hope that that retraction and that apology will come very soon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Kaplan for mentioning that, and also, I think not only our community sees the brave things that the police officers do, but also can see from the newspaper all the heroes, the Shop with the Heroes, where they took 100 kids shopping. if you've never, I don't know which one you'd see more smiles on, the officers and heroes that are taking these kids or the kids with the enjoyment that they have. You'd be hard pressed to tell which one's having more fun.
I guess I would just like, to see our local press just kind of understand what it is that we're trying to do for the community. Everyone here wants to see the community thrive. They want the people here to be happy. No one is out to, I'm not going to go too far into it, but we're all trying to do good for our city. I wish that people would be just a little bit more mindful of what everyone is trying to accomplish for the better of our community. So that's all I want to say about that. But does anyone else have any comments or questions?
I'd just like for the community to remember that they elected this council for a change. And I believe we've been very professional and very straightforward and open with what we're doing. And we've been criticized for it, and I believe that people tend to forget. I know I have a hard time remembering what I had for breakfast yesterday. But as time goes on, it's easy to forget the reason you went into that voting booth and voted for change and the change that you expected. And I believe we are bringing about things in Poplar Bluff we haven't seen for a long time. And we've just seen Mr. Kaplan make a very professional presentation today, very open, the way that we are moving forward. And I believe he has been very good at explaining himself. And I'm proud we put him in office. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and I just remind people to remember what they called us to do.
Anyone else?
With that too, I'd also like to invite the public this Wednesday at the First Methodist Church. We're having a community Christmas dinner. The entire public is invited, and it's our gift to the community, and we ask people to come out and enjoy Christmas dinner.
Thank you.
What time is that?
What time?
It's
At 5:30.
Yeah.
5:30 Wednesday.
It's 10:05. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
That's a big hint, wasn't it?